All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Exploring Growth podcast. Today, I've got Brooks Szewczyk with me today from yardstick.com. And I'm excited to have him here. How he got here was through a mutual connection, Dan Sanchez. I've mentioned Dan's name on this podcast. Seems like every single time I get on here, there's some kind of story I've had with, talking with him on LinkedIn or having him on here. We had such a great conversation. So now we're here with Brooks. I'm excited to have you on. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be able to go through some of the stuff we've got planned and to be on the podcast. Thanks for having me, Lee.
Yeah, sure. It's great. I'm excited about talking about this topic today. So what we're going to do is kind of drive towards demand gen, like and branding as our, that's where we want to end up and kind of settle on that. But to kind of tee that up, we were talking a little bit before we hit record, and we both agree that you know lead gen has been this thing that we've used for a number of years, and it's been sort of the redheaded stepchild. It's been beat up a little bit, and for good measure. I mean, I think lead gen still has its place depending on what kind of company, what kind of product you have in the marketing strategy. But for the most part, marketers today are moving away from lead gen, and they're moving to a more relationship based marketing approach. And what that is demand gen, which can also be described as branding. I think some people in certain kind of niches will pull those apart and say branding is one thing and demand gen's another. But for all intents and purposes, talking generally here, um, you know, getting away from getting ebook downloads, right? It's the best way to kind of summarize that, and getting more to building a sort of I would say superficial, but much more genuine or authentic relationship with your audience, so that they see you as credible. They see you as this brand or this expert. That whenever they do have a problem, it just makes perfect sense that they would reach out to you to solve it. So let's do this first. Why don't we kind of just touch on you know like what made the shift for you from going from lead gen to demand gen, and maybe talk a little bit about why did you make that shift, and when did that happen, and then we'll kind of
Yeah.
work towards the demand gen topic.
Yeah, sounds good. And when your thoughts on brand there are spot on. Demand is a part of brand. If you think what it means to have a strong brand, some people think it's just that you're a brand identity, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it goes a lot deeper into what you believe, the problems you solve, and
Mm-hmm.
who you solve them for, and that's really what demand gen is. At
Yes.
least good demand gen. So the thing that made a difference for me, I was a marketer. I was in charge of marketing for a small university, really into the lead gen model and running the lead gen hamster wheel. We all kind
Mm-hmm.
of know how it goes. And I think B2B was probably the first to really move to a demand gen model.
Mm-hmm.
And we started to implement that. Again, to mention Dan Sanchez, it was his idea. I kind of came after him in the university, and he got the ideas rolling with that. And the thing that changed my mind was that I started to understand we had a problem with lead gen every single year,
Right.
hitting our numbers. And the problem was that we had a really small market, incredibly niche college, and we were eating up so much of that market. And so we started to build this demand gen engine within our school, and it was really heavily reliant on content. So the school was a missionary training school, and we thought we need to, instead of just trying to grab people who are wanting to be missionaries through advertising, which is what we were doing to get leads. It was
Mm-hmm.
incredibly expensive
Mm-hmm.
and getting more expensive every year, getting more difficult every year, as we also could tell just through data, through studies, that less and less people were interested in that kind of thing. We said we need to take the offensive, and we need to help people understand the importance of missions. We need to help people mature in their faith, and we need to be the school that has that kind of influence. So
Mm-hmm.
if you think, like, the essence of marketing is influence, and for a long time marketers were able to get away with having a really crappy amount of influence and just putting ads on Facebook or Google or whatever it might
Mm-hmm.
be, and running for a white paper or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's not really any kind of influence. That's just picking people off one by one. And so we started to build up this engine that had an actual influence on people. And we were able to measure people's maturity and their problem and solution awareness for what our school offered. So over the 2 years that I was in charge of marketing there, the website that we had built, we built a media brand within within the school. The website that we built moved from, I think it was like 8,000 monthly visits when I got there to over 600,000 when I left. That made an incredible difference on, even if you just want to look purely at lead gen numbers,
Mm-hmm.
which I want to measure things by what happens at the bottom of the funnel, not at the top. But
Sure.
even if you just look at those lead gen numbers, we replaced all of our paid advertising leads with organic inbound leads that were a higher quality. And that's because we played the long game. We did the work. Now, in that time, I saw what it meant internally to have to fight for a demand gen model, because it's a lot of upfront work with not very much upfront results. It takes time to build. You just got to keep saying the results will come. The results will come. It's going to take these repeated actions over and over again for us to actually have influence, because you can't have someone trust you the next day.
Right.
And that's what you have to build. So I saw the results for that. It was a hard fought battle to be able to do it. And made a bet, and it paid off in the end. And so that was the biggest thing for me. I actually genuinely got to see it even before Chris Walker and Refine Labs started doing a really good job at promoting demand gen.
Mm-hmm.
We just happened to be doing it before we even knew what it was called. And it made a world of difference for us. So that's what really changed my mind. And then I start to get on LinkedIn and listen to podcasts, as I always do, and start to realize there's categories around the thing that we just did,
Mm-hmm.
and there's words for it. And so that's kind of how we ended up in the demand gen space.
That's great. So that's a great story, and I think such a good example. I appreciate that. If we look at that story, that timeline, when you went from seeing a need to change to what you would now call demand gen at the time, you're like, we're just going to move to more influence. Did you stair step that towards more influence, where you kind of ramped up your influence type of tactics and ramped down your lead gen tactics, or did you just say, okay, we're going to throw that out and try this?
Well, lead gen was ramping down no matter what we did. Things were getting more expensive. And so that was the problem, is that every year we'd be in the same space going, we've just got a little bit of a gap between where we need to be and where we're at with lead gen. And what we did at that school, we went all in on one area. We went all in on building SEO and acquiring traffic that way.
Mm-hmm.
So now in my new role, we're going very different. Then it was SEO. Now we're going with social, with podcasting,
Mm-hmm.
with community building, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different avenues you can go with building that community. But when we were building that media brand at the school, like I said, we went all in on blogging. So of course, that's gradually building up the amount of blogs and keywords that we're winning that answer specific questions. And then the second thing that we did that was the biggest step for us, if we're talking about stair steps, is we started to capture some of that demand and help to nurture people through greater. So we, based on the articles that they were reading, the kind of things they were interested on the website, we said they're probably about this space. They care about this kind of topic. This is the kind of thing they're looking into. Mm-hmm. So we built quizzes to help figure out a little bit better what kind of content was best to deliver for them. So it's really quizzes that would be fun for them to take, like, where am I in my discipleship journey, or things of that nature. And then based on that, we're like, okay, so they've kind of got a weakness in their understanding of theology proper, but they've got really good understanding of the need for evangelism, or
so they sort of raise their hand to kind of identify where they are on that journey, I guess.
Exactly. And so based on that, they got a really fun result. And then we were able to give them content that we've tested with each different kind of audience, and we know this is not only what they're going to want to consume, but this is what they need to hear to move to the next step.
That's
over
great.
Repeat. So 15 articles and emails later, and they've we can see they're engaging, and they've got a better understanding of this. Now is the time for us to keep moving them up.
Yeah, I love that. So I mean, you have to have spent a lot of time with what I'll call your buyers, right? You have to spend a lot of time with them, getting feedback and listening, in order to be that dialed in. I mean, and it sounds like a very dynamic approach, where if they end up with these answers on this quiz, they're going down this path.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of surveys, which I've since come to think it's actually a lot better to have qualitative data, I mean, and really talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the good thing with that was we had a college of students that were right in our market, and there were the kinds of people that would be reading that stuff. And so every time we'd get new students in on campus, every time I could, I'd be sitting down and talking with them.
Yeah.
And the other good thing was the team that I had at the time was staffed primarily by students at the college, and so they were the people who would kind of they were the ones who would understand where this is. So I would get them together and talk with them through the changes that we were making, the quizzes, things like that, have them
Mm-hmm.
test it out and read through the content and get their ideas on it. That was really helpful. At the time,
Yeah.
I probably undervalued getting on a Zoom call and talking with the people that were actually engaging on the website.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go back and change that if I could. But
Yeah, no, all of this really is sounds very similar to um, someone I follow on LinkedIn, Alice DeCursey at Cognism. You're probably familiar with her.
I'm reading her book at the moment,
Yeah, that's
actually.
what I was going to mention, the Diary of a First Time CMO. And
I have it right over there, actually.
yeah, so I didn't read the book. I went to the podcast, well, not the podcast, but the audio version of it on Spotify, just because
Mhm.
I didn't want to wait to read it. I want to just go ahead and start, just jumping in. So I listened to it. I think I've listened to it all the way through, and now I'm kind of going back through and listening to some specific chapters. But she talks about her, obviously this is the diary, like this is her journey of doing exactly what you did. And it's funny to hear your story, coming from a similar role. These are different organizations, right? Similar role, and experimenting with very similar strategies. I don't know how far you've gotten in the book, but do you see the parallel there? I mean, I think that she's basically saying the same thing that you're saying now.
Yes, surely. I'm probably only like 15%. I just got the book
Oh
a
yeah.
week ago, but I have been reading it, and I certainly see the parallels between it. I would say she's probably a bit ahead of me in most areas, but yeah, I've
Yeah.
been really loving reading that book. It helps me to kind of think through also like where am I at now. She's probably encountered a lot of the issues that I'm
Mhm.
currently trying to get through. So
Yeah, because switching over from a lead gen model to a demand gen or branding, your team changes, your approach
mhm,
changes, how you ask for money from finance changes. The metrics you're measuring completely change, and I think it's interesting. If anybody, I'll try to leave a link in the description. If anybody wants to check out that book, I thought it was awesome. I mean, I love
mhm.
getting an insight into what I would call more of an operational CMO, as someone who's in there, doesn't have a problem picking up the phone and talking to the buyer, talking to prospects,
Yes.
like you were just saying. I think that's so invaluable to spend that time where you may want to go back to the whiteboard and kind of, work on high level stuff when you can really get the answer talking to the end user.
Hmm.
So let's sort of like move over into branding and demand gen. And, we were talking before we got on here about some of that. Maybe give some examples of how you've seen that work, and like how are you utilizing that right now? Like, this audience who's listening to this are going to be CEOs and lead marketers of mid-level companies. So, they have a small marketing team as they're building a brand. They may have a sales team that's supporting a lot of the revenue, and now they're being asked to carry some of the revenue. um,
Hmm.
they're kind of all sides of the spectrum. So, maybe speaking to that audience on this topic would be helpful.
Yeah, I remember um, previous times sitting with president of the organization, and he's saying there are schools winning right now. How are they winning? Because we're like the industry's in decline. The industry's in decline.
Mm-hmm.
How are some schools doing really well?
Mm-hmm.
And I've moved on in my career. I'm a B2B marketer and a SaaS marketer now, and it's the same story. Industries in decline, some companies are winning. How are they winning? That's the question. If you're a
Mm-hmm.
CEO, that's probably the kind of question you want to be asking is how are some people winning right now? What are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
And those companies that are winning, it's 9 out of 10 times brand.
Mm-hmm.
They're winning because people know and trust them already. If you did a
That's
case
right.
study and looked at those brands that are really winning right now, you would realize that not every time, 9 out of 10 times, they're winning because they have organic or direct sourced inbound. That's where things are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the middle of the funnel thing when we're talking about inbound. Behind all of that is they've done the work to make people problem and solution aware, to make people trust them and
Mm-hmm.
understand that they're credible, and to be memorable and to be influential on their audience. And a lot of times that's not just talking about the thing like problem and solution aware. To me, that's demand gen is kind of middle of the funnel.
Yeah,
You have to step one step above and think audience growth.
that's right.
You can't just come in and start talking about this is the problem, this is how we fix it, this is the problem, this is how we fix it. I mean,
Yeah,
that'd be a good step for a lot of companies that aren't even doing that now. But you also need to go a little bit higher, build an audience of people that
right.
trust you, build a community, and so that would be my advice to CEOs is if you're thinking, why are we not winning? And I want to pour a ton of money into lead gen, maybe step back and think, it's going to be hard to get out of this rut right now, and you're going to have to do a lot of hard work,
Mm-hmm.
and this might take some time. But if that's the case, now do it now. Invest in brand now. Invest in building brand. And I
Right.
think it's important to talk about what brand is, because when I say that, I'm not talking about like this ethereal idea of brand consistency where everything looks the same across
Mm-hmm.
platforms or whatever. I don't. That's not what I mean by brand. What I mean by brand is that you have really strongly held beliefs as a brand.
Mm-hmm.
You've identified who your enemies are. You've developed some sort of IP, and you're the champion. You're the thought leader for that. And to do that, you have to identify who your audience is. And there's a huge model that you have to follow to build a great brand, and it's a lot more than just how you look. And now's the time to start building out that influence, I think.
Yeah, that's all really well said, and I think all 100% true. I think you said it a little bit back. The good delineation between demand gen and brand is to think about the problem solution on the demand gen side, but as you step back into branding, it's really more thinking about the person that has the problem, right? And humanizing your messaging. But the only way you can do that is if you know that buyer, if you know what it is that they're, if you know the context in which the problem uh, is set forth. Um, that's the way I always try to think about it, and I couldn't agree more. I've worked with so many clients where we'll literally just say, okay, before we put together any kind of legitimate strategy, the first thing we want to do is get in front of people, and we've done it in every different way, surveys to coffees to dinners, whatever. But when you sit across the table from someone in person, and this can happen a lot of times just for practical you know reasons, like you can go to a conference and invite 3 or 4 people to dinner. You sit across the table from them, and you have a good solid hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours to just sit there, enjoy some really good food, and get to know the person. They're gonna reveal everything it is that you need to know. It just happens. And in fact, they tell you usually too much. And as long as you're making notes in your mind or on a paper, and you're going back and digesting and saying, I can't believe that they are coming at it that way. I didn't know that this was the problem they're trying to solve internally, and why they even have the problem that they have to solve with me. So if you are doing that, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but it seems like that's the hard work that has to be done. And then translating that to marketing strategy and marketing efforts is the next piece. If you're doing that, then you're going to win on brand, because it's going to reveal itself, and you're going to have to do something with it. You're going to have to either say, we're just not really going to do anything with what we learned. We're just going to keep doing what we've always done.
Mhm.
Or there's something there, and maybe if we were to speak to that, then the story about our vision, the story about our uniquenesses, is going to be much more relatable, because we're speaking their language.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot of good ways to get in front of people and have those kinds of conversations. I thought maybe I'd just add on two more that I've found super helpful these last probably about a year. The first is I have been recording podcasts with people who are directly in our ICP. They're people that whose opinions I care about, and that are probably the kind of people who would buy from us. And afterward, I always take them through a post interview where it's just a conversation, and I'm asking them, what is the biggest problem that you're
That's a
facing,
strong
what
one.
is important
Very
to you.
strong.
And I'm just, what I'm doing is I'm digging for things that help me to know how to hone in my content better.
Mhm.
So what's actually resonating with people and what's not. And I'm getting ideas for things to try. A lot of figuring out what people care about, what
Mhm.
beliefs you need to represent, is just trial and error,
That's right.
I think.
Oh,
And
completely.
the second thing is, you if you are leading a business, you want to understand who the problems people are facing that you need to solve, go to social media and interact with them. You wouldn't believe the insights that you could get just by reading the LinkedIn posts
So
of
true.
the founders, CEOs that you're trying to serve, or whoever they might be, whoever the
Yeah.
owner is that you're trying to get to. Go read their stuff and interact with them, have
Mhm.
conversations. You wouldn't believe the insights you could get from that. So those are two places. If you're doing something like a podcast, or you're regularly talking to or interviewing those people, just say, hey, would you have 5 minutes for a quick, like, interview of some sort, and just rapid fire, give me your thoughts on this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Who are you listening to? What are the problems that you care about right
Yeah.
now? So we developed that out, tested the questions over time also to figure out what gives me the best
Sure.
insights. And then I would also add, you kind of have to know how to sift through the things that people say. Some people are going to be incredibly they're going to give you the things that they think you want to hear. That's just human nature. You have to find the people who are going to give you critique and
Mhm.
be honest with you, and who are trustworthy, and also just go back to those people. Keep getting insights from them. Keep asking them for their thoughts, because those are the people that are going to give you the stuff that's going to really help you. It's like, I know I take ideas to people for, what if we start talking about this? What if we really built a model around this? And they're the founder CEOs we want to talk to, and they're like, that's awesome. I love it. This is a good idea. And roll it out. No one cares. But then I think back to the people who are like, that might not resonate. That might get people excited. It might not actually resonate in the end because of X, Y, or Z. Those were the people that I needed to go back to the second time and
Yes.
ask them again.
Yes.
Okay, what do you think about this idea? Because those were the people that told me the truth.
Uh-huh.
And so that, just a few things that came off of what you said there.
Yeah, and I think, whoever's doing this on your marketing team, they have to have this sort of sixth sense skill set, I think. I mean, if you really dig into this, because you have to be reading between the lines a lot of the time when people are giving you answers. Um, they're only giving you the best answer that they can give you.
Right.
They're being truthful. I think people are going to be completely honest with you as far as they can, but um, you have to be able to read between the lines and see what are they really saying, and then be able to sort of aggregate that qualitative those qualitative thoughts, to see patterns, to
Mm-hmm.
see a pattern between, okay, here's what we think they're all really saying, or it may be directly very obvious, and that connects in this way. um, I think that's a real skill set, you
For
know.
sure. For sure. We've mentioned Alice DeCourcy and Dan Sanchez. I would also throw in Ryan Paul Gibson.
Okay.
If you're going to go follow him on LinkedIn, his big thing is how to conduct good customer interviews.
Oh yeah.
And there was a time, probably about 2 years ago, I went through everything, like his last 100 LinkedIn posts, and just took notes on them. And that was incredibly helpful for me.
Yeah.
So I'd definitely go through and just look through the stuff he's putting out. It's super helpful. There's an example that I'm trying to remember where it came from. It may have come from the book The Mom Test, or it may have
Okay.
just come from a friend of mine. I'm not actually sure
Yeah.
where, if I'm remembering correctly, where this came from. But there was a survey. They were trying to figure out what color a book cover should be.
Mhm.
So they asked everyone, pick the color you think looks best for this book cover. And then they asked them at the end, we're going to tell them, we're going to send you a free copy of the book. What color would you like? It was overwhelmingly yellow or orange. Actually, I think it was orange
Orange. Yeah.
on what people said the book cover should be. And then overwhelmingly black they chose for their own copy. So
Interesting.
they chose two different colors because their mindset was different. The
Yeah.
first time they're answering what would be best, and the second time they're answering what
What's
do I
best for
want.
me?
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, you're the person we care about,
Yeah.
so you should have probably answered black. So it comes down, you have to, it's asking really good questions, and also just looking at what people are interacting with. That's the other thing. If you're trying to figure out what's resonating, just look at the statistics behind your engagement on social or whatever platforms that you're putting content on.
Yeah.
That'll tell you a lot about what people want to hear as well.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be missed. You mentioned just going to LinkedIn and looking at buyers and influencers and just reading the comments. That's a huge one. I mean, it all it takes is, I think, that skill set to see patterns, read between lines, and just sit there and give it the time.
Hmm.
And I really think that is a huge way to learn. Even if you're, let's say you're right now thinking, okay, this is not working for me, we got to go try something else. Well, go spend a bunch of time in the comments section and just dedicate that time to reading and learning and making notes. You're gonna come away with a lot of really good insights.
Hmm. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, in fact, you might come away with some things that challenge you so much that you realize, like, oh wow, we have a lot of work to do here, and I don't
Yeah.
really want to go back to the comment section because it's too much truth going on in there.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that a lot of times with content that I was creating. I launched a podcast 8 months ago or so,
Mhm.
and realized really quickly, I'm looking at what everyone else is engaging on. There's one particular topic that all of these people are engaging with more than any other, and we weren't covering it at all. So you start to talk about it,
Yeah.
and people wanted to hear it. There's even at Yardstick, we were testing, trying to figure out how to phrase this category that we feel like we're creating,
Hmm.
and start talking to customers of ours and then talking with them about that category, and they don't understand our terminology at all. And so we're like, okay, that's not going to work if they don't even have a little bit of understanding on. And so we have to go back to the drawing board and rephrase it, which we did. And now we take this new phrasing back to them, and they're like, this is the way. This is a lot better.
Yeah,
They understood it.
that's great, and I think that opens up an opportunity for you to start building IP around it, uniquenesses around it, and long tail or short tail SEO, but long tail eventually, to be found for those phrasings, for those
Mhm.
titles. Isn't that right? I mean, that's kind of full
Yeah.
circle back to what we were saying before.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say it's important to have IP, and then to have that problem solution aware content that helps people to go deeper with what you
Mhm.
offer.
What else can we say about brand at this point? I mean, is there anything else that we missed that you really want people to know?
There is a model that Dan put together of a 20-point. It's like a 20-point brand checklist
Okay.
for what you need to have a solid brand.
Hmm.
And maybe it would be just best to link that in the show notes.
Okay.
That is something that people should really go and look at, because I think you're going to look at that and be like, I thought brand was two out of these 20 things. Um, and and start to build out brand based on that. The thing that I would say for brand, to invest in brand, is that it is the most resilient growth mechanism that you could have, and it's also the most scalable. So the tactics that you use to grow that are not brand,
Hmm.
that are not organic or direct, those things are really hard to scale at some point. You kind of hit a wall with them, and it's not to say you should never do them at all, but that you have to invest in brand early on if you want to get past that wall.
Yeah.
So brand is going to be resilient throughout an economic downturn. Brand is going to be resilient when you start to hit a wall, and brand is the only thing that's going to be able to scale. When you have the typical lead gen model, growth is one to one. It's however much work I can do
Hmm.
on ads or outreach or whatever it might be. Brand is not one to one. Brand is exponentially scalable over time.
Yes. It definitely takes on a network effect. And I think, to the point of it being um, providing sustainability and scalability, I think that's the most strategic thing that you can do, which is why you should start with it first and start building it alongside everything else you're doing. Because everything you do with brand can be deployed against your buyer in other tactical ways, all the
Mhm.
way through the sales pipeline.
Yes.
So there's a lot you can do with it.
Yeah. And the essence of it is, do people have affinity for you? Do they care about you? Do they love your
Mhm.
brand? Some people get a little bit, they don't like those terms. Like, I'm a brand and people aren't going to love me. It's
Mhm.
not true. People do love brands.
Mhm.
If you're going to solve their issues, that's what it comes down to. Do they care about you? Do they like you? Um,
That's right.
I like the word affinity for that. It's like and what that creates is just this word of mouth, which is
Mhm.
still the best way to grow possible.
Yeah,
And, I remember, I think it was from 2008, Gary Vaynerchuk was giving a keynote speech at, I don't remember where it was, somewhere in New York. It's horrible audio. And he said, you don't realize it, but word of mouth is changing right now. And he was like, 2 years ago, the most someone could do is talk to their friends about you every once in a while. They may tell like 4 or 5 people. He was like, now some random dude in the middle of nowhere could tell 4,000 people about you in 5 seconds
that's right.
just by tweeting, right? They could
Yes.
they could send you to their like the whole company via Slack or whatever it
Yeah.
might be, just engaging with your content. Word of mouth has changed incredibly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunity there,
And
and
I would
you
add
don't
to,
generate word of mouth by lead gen.
no, it's true, but I would add to that, if that happens or when that happens, the impact is so great if you've done the work on the front end to really know who those 4,000 buyers are, or, maybe
Mhm.
even if it's a bigger audience, a total, addressable market, so that when your message is shared or referred, it's compelling. So,
Yeah.
being able to do the work is why they would share it, and is why it would be received by who was shared to.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, this is great. Well, hey, I've enjoyed this conversation. We should probably do it again. But we're getting kind of like a little past the 30-minute mark. I like to keep everything right around 30 minutes. And what we'll do is we'll link, of course, Yardstick, your LinkedIn. I'm going to link that book from Alice and Dan's brand checklist. We'll link that down there. Anything else we need to put down in the show notes for people to find you?
I don't think so. That'd be great.
Cool. Well, thanks again for coming on. It's been a great conversation, and we should definitely do this again.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you, Lee.
All right. Thanks.